There's a war brewing in Cleveland. And it's not just between two rookie quarterbacks, it's between a frustrated fan base, a head coach on the hot seat, and a rising star that's being deliberately kept off the field. While the Browns continue spiraling into another disappointing season, while games are handed away on busted special teams plays, and while your Twitter feed explodes with fans demanding anyone take control, head coach Kevin Stefanski stood in front of reporters and praised the one man he's refusing to play. Seriously, the QB he won't start, the one glued to the bench week after week? He called him impressive, locked in, executing well in red zone drills. So fans are left asking the obvious question. If Shadur Sanders is doing everything right, why is he still being treated like he's not good enough to touch the field? Is this just another case of stubborn coaching? Or is something much bigger going on behind the scenes in Cleveland? Kevin Stefanski walked into the post-game press room like a man who just survived a hurricane and was still trying to convince reporters it was only light rain. Another loss, another nightmare performance, and another firestorm of angry Browns fans demanding answers. It should have been the usual quick excuses, vague coach talk, and a fast retreat. But instead, Stefanski dropped something completely unexpected. He praised Shadur Sanders. Not just a harmless mention, not a generic "he's coming along" line. We're talking actual praise, specific, detailed credit for a player he refuses to put on the field. Stefanski told the media that Sanders had been absolutely locked in during meetings, that he was executing efficiently in practice and had shown real growth, particularly in red zone drills. Yep, red zone. The one area where NFL games are won or lost. It was like he wanted the world to know, hey, this kid is the real deal. We're just not going to play him yet. Let that sink in. Most coaches, especially when they're under fire, don't go out of their way to compliment the backup quarterback. That's a Pandora's box they don't want to open. It creates distraction, controversy, headlines. But here's the irony. Stefanski created the controversy by praising the guy everyone's screaming to see while keeping him on the sideline week after week. Fans heard the quote and nearly lost it. If this kid is crushing red zone drills, absorbing the playbook, and impressing behind closed doors, then what's the excuse? What exactly is the criteria for earning a shot in Cleveland? The confusion and, frankly, the outrage comes from the timing. Stefanski chose to say all this not after a big win, not after Gabriel had a breakout performance. No, he said it after a frustrating 27-20 loss to the New York Jets, a game where the Browns didn't even lose because of their offense. They lost because their special teams unit fell apart so badly, it's almost hard to believe. But whether the collapse was on special teams or not, the fan pressure was already at full volume. And then Stefanski goes and pours gasoline on the fire by basically saying Sanders is doing everything right, but still won't see the field. It's bold, and it's baffling. This could have been a clean press conference. He could have dodged questions, punted the answer, said the usual, "We're evaluating everyone." But instead, he highlighted Sanders' effort. He went out of his way to commend his poise, his preparation, and how he's making the most of his practice time, even saying they adjusted the practice schedule just to get him more reps. It didn't just raise eyebrows, it raised suspicion. Because here's the uncomfortable truth buried inside Stefanski's praise. It wasn't meant to calm anyone down, it was meant to control the narrative. What he was really saying was, "Don't blame me. Sanders is ready. We're working with him. We're doing our part." But fans weren't buying it, because the only thing that matters isn't behind-the-scenes preparation, it's what happens on Sundays. And right now, Sanders isn't getting even a single snap. Stefanski's comments may have been designed to silence rumors about locker room tension or internal politics, but it did the opposite. It confirmed what a lot of fans already believe, that something doesn't add up in how this coaching staff is handling the future of the franchise. And as thousands of fans watched the Browns lose yet again, all they could think about was the player their own coach believes is doing everything right, sitting silently on the bench. The more Stefanski praises him, the worse it looks that Sanders hasn't played a single down. And unless that changes immediately, Cleveland might not survive the storm that's brewing in their own locker room. On paper, Dillon Gabriel's stat line from the Jets game doesn't look like a complete disaster. 167 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a career-high 54 rushing yards that showed he could finally extend plays with his legs. If you weren't watching the game, you might think he held his own, maybe even turned a corner. But here's the reality, the Browns still lost. And not just lost. They got embarrassed in exactly the kind of game they had to win. Not because of Gabriel's arm, not because of anyone's defense, but because the special teams handed the Jets 14 free points like it was a group gift. 1 kickoff return touchdown, 1 punt return touchdown. In the same game, let that sink in. 2 massive blunders that had zero to do with Gabriel, Sanders, or play calling. Just pure, fundamental breakdowns on plays most teams manage every week without issue. If this were an isolated incident, maybe people would have let it slide. But in Cleveland, this is just the latest chapter of an ongoing disaster movie. And even though Gabriel wasn't the main villain this time, fans still left the game fuming because when it comes to losing in Cleveland, everyone's starting to look guilty by association. If Gabriel were lighting up defenses week after week, maybe he'd have some protection from all the noise, but that's not what's happening here. He's now led the Browns to a 1-4 record as the starter, and despite the occasional flash of talent, the offense just hasn't done enough to win games. It's not creative, it's not explosive, and it's certainly not dangerous. That's the frustration boiling over in this fan base right now. It's not just about losing a few games. It's how they're losing in the same predictable patterns that have haunted this team for years. Predictable offense, questionable game plans, conservative décision. And now, a QB controversy that nobody asked for, but everyone saw coming. Because for all of Gabriel's serviceable performances, the Browns still look stuck. They move the ball in short bursts, occasionally strike gold, and then stall when it matters most. Red zone trips turn into field goals or nothing. Drives that should ice the game end in punts. There's no rhythm, and more importantly, no spark. And with every incomplete pass, every third down misfire, fans are asking the same question over and over. What exactly are we gaining by riding this out? Dillon Gabriel might be doing enough to not get benched, but he's not doing enough to win decisively. He's not the reason they're losing, but he hasn't proven he's the reason they can win either. And that's exactly why so many fans are done being patient. Because while Gabriel struggles to move the chains, Sanders is reportedly crushing it in practice, killing red zone reps, picking up the offense, staying mentally sharp, waiting, and waiting, and waiting. They're watching Sanders soak up praise from the head coach, and yet they've never seen him take a real NFL snap. Not one. So you're telling Cleveland fans to keep trusting the process? To ride out a failed strategy? To just accept that maybe next year is the plan again? This isn't just about a quarterback anymore. It's about a pattern that's become all too familiar in Cleveland. The Browns finally bring in someone with promise, and they bury him behind excuses, loyalty, or blind stubbornness. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because if Dillon Gabriel continues to post mediocre numbers while the team keeps spiraling, and Sanders still doesn't get his shot, it's no longer just about losing games. It's about losing the locker room, losing the fans, and maybe losing a franchise quarterback before he even gets a chance to show what he's made of. The warning signs are everywhere. And right now, no one seems willing to do the one thing that could change everything. See what Sanders can actually do when it really counts. By now, fans aren't just frustrated, they're suspicious. Because in Cleveland, things rarely happen without drama, and the longer Shadur Sanders stays glued to the bench while being praised from the podium, the louder the whispers get. Is this really about football, or is something else going on behind the scenes? The rumors started small, buried in message boards and Twitter threads. But now, even local media outlets are asking uncomfortable questions. Why is a rookie who's reportedly doing everything right being deliberately sidelined? Some fans believe Kevin Stefanski just doesn't like him. Others think there was tension during pre-draft interviews that no one ever talked about publicly. One theory floating around Reddit suggests a personal bias. Maybe Stefanski didn't want Sanders drafted and is now quietly refusing to adjust the playbook to suit his strengths. Nobody's offered hard proof. But that's the thing, when communication from the top is vague, speculation fills the void. And right now, that void is enormous. The Browns have said nothing specific, just the usual phrases. He's working hard. We're developing him. We'll make decisions week to week. That kind of language doesn't calm fans down, it only throws more gas on the fire, especially when week after week goes by and Sanders still doesn't take the field. No trash time snaps, no short yardage work, nothing. It's gotten to the point where some fans are convinced there must be a serious issue, something the team won't disclose. Maybe it's in the locker room. Maybe it has to do with off-field behavior. Maybe, fans speculate, he wasn't Stefanski's guy to begin with. Let's rewind. The Browns took 2 quarterbacks in the same draft, but only 50 picks apart. Most teams don't do that, and when they do, there's usually a clear hierarchy. One's the future, the other's backup insurance. No one questions the depth chart, but not in Cleveland. Shadur Sanders was projected as a top-tier pick first or second round in most mock drafts. Then he slipped, dropped to the 5th. No medical red flags went public, no combine disaster. No character concerns leaked to the press, just a mysterious fall. And the Browns pounced. To fans, it looked like the steal of the draft. Grab the son of an NFL Hall of Famer with proven leadership, big game experience, and top-tier college production? That's exactly how franchises find hidden gold. So why treat him like a long-term project instead of a true contender? Some believe front office politics are at play, like the coaching staff didn't agree with the front office about drafting 2 quarterbacks in the first place. If that theory holds any water, it means Stefanski could be playing Gabriel out of organizational loyalty while downplaying Sanders to protect someone's job behind the scenes. Again, none of these rumors are confirmed. But they're growing. Fast. And when the team is losing, the fan base desperately looks for someone to blame. Right now, that spotlight is pointed directly at the head coach. Because here's the truth, you don't get to praise a quarterback's work ethic, red zone efficiency, and practice intensity publicly, and then keep telling people he's not ready without raising eyebrows. Fans aren't stupid. They can smell mixed messaging from a mile away. If Sanders is ready, why hasn't he played? If he's not ready, why all the praise? It's that dissonance that's driving speculation into overdrive. Every day Sanders rides the bench, another layer of mystery gets added to this already strange situation. The silence from the Browns? Only making things worse. And if something is going on behind the curtain, whether it's personal tension, backroom politics, or just bad decision-making, things might boil over sooner than anyone expects. Because this situation is no longer just about upside potential or developing rookies. It's starting to feel an awful lot like Cleveland is letting another quarterback slip through their fingers. And this time, the warning signs are flashing in bright neon, and the fans are watching every move. Here's where things get even more bizarre. Because if the Browns were truly sold on Dillon Gabriel leading this team, if he were clearly the future, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing right now in practice. In an unusual and revealing moment during a press conference, Kevin Stefanski let something slip. He said the coaching staff had completely changed the practice schedule this year, specifically to get both rookie quarterbacks more developmental reps. They added individual periods on Mondays and Saturdays sessions that never existed in past seasons, just to give guys who don't see the field on Sundays a chance to sharpen up. Translation: they're building practice time around quarterbacks who aren't playing. Even crazier? Stefanski straight up said it was for guys like Shadur Sanders. For a coaching staff that claims one of the rookies isn't ready, they're sure bending over backward to help him develop. And for a team that's supposedly all in on Dillon Gabriel, that's a very strange use of resources. This doesn't look like a team that's confident in their starter. It looks like a team hedging bets on both quarterbacks because they don't know who their guy really is. And that uneasy balance? It goes directly back to Cleveland's strange draft day decision to take 2 QBs less than 50 picks apart, one early, one late, with no public explanation about how they plan to handle it. Most franchises treat the quarterback room like a monarchy. One king, one heir, one court jester. But not Cleveland. They rolled the dice on 2 potential starters. And now they're stuck in quarterback limbo, neither fully committing to Gabriel nor testing Sanders when their season is already slipping away. If you read between the lines, Stefanski's comments actually say a lot more than he intended. This isn't your typical developmental wait-and-see strategy. This is a full-blown 2-plan approach running parallel QB timelines, hoping one breaks out without disrupting the other. That's a massive gamble, because trying to develop 2 quarterbacks at the same time, especially without game reps, is one of the hardest things to manage in the NFL. Quarterbacks need live bullets. They need to make mistakes, adjust to game speed, react under pressure, fail, regroup, and evolve with repetition. The harsh truth? No number of red zone drills or whiteboard sessions can replicate a live NFL pass rush collapsing on you in 2.4 seconds. And the Browns know it. By scheduling extra practice periods on non-traditional days, the Browns are quietly admitting that neither of these rookies is getting what they really need: real game experience. The question is, why not? If Sanders is showing poise in those extra practices, if he's reading defenses in red zone simulations and clicking with teammates, what more could you possibly expect before testing him under the lights? Don't forget, Gabriel is getting actual starts. 6 games, 5 losses. And even in the close ones, the team failed to capitalize when it mattered. If development is your concern, wouldn't those reps be more meaningful spent on a guy who hasn't had a shot yet? Instead, Sanders is watching from the sideline, collecting reps in isolated sessions designed to simulate Sunday pressure without ever tasting Sunday pressure. And here's where it gets problematic. Because while that might sound like a patient, structured plan on paper, in reality, it could be sabotaging everything. You can't build a franchise around potential if you never test the product. You can't develop talent in a vacuum. And you definitely can't ask fans to stay patient while you stash a possible long-term starter away in a private QB lab. Whether they realize it or not, Cleveland's coaching staff has built a QB experiment one no other team in the league is trying. They're splitting time, splitting strategies, and splitting the fan base. And unless they make a decision fast, they could end up splitting the locker room too. Back in April, when the Browns drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks in the same class, it didn't raise many red flags at first. Teams take late-round flyers all the time, right? Insurance policy, camp competition, low risk, high reward. But what Cleveland did wasn't your average draft day dart throw. It was something the NFL almost never sees, and for good reason. Since 1994, when the league shortened the draft to 7 rounds, only 11 teams have selected 2 quarterbacks in the same draft. That's it. And most of those didn't produce anything more than backup drama or short-term replacements. Which begs the question, why would Cleveland knowingly walk into one of the rarest and riskiest QB strategies in the modern football era? Worse yet, why would they do it with no clear plan? See, when teams draft multiple QBs in a class, the pecking order is usually obvious. One goes early, the other late. There's no confusion. One is the guy, the other is developmental depth. But Cleveland? They drafted Dillon Gabriel and Shadur Sanders just 50 picks apart. That's not standard. That's not urgent depth. That's a quarterback competition waiting to explode. Here's where it gets even messier. Gabriel was drafted first, sure, but Sanders? Most analysts had him going first. Pre-draft projections from ESPN, the Draft Network, and every major mock had Shadur Sanders slotted somewhere in the first to late second round. A polished passer with NFL bloodlines, standout numbers, and undeniable poise under pressure. And when he started to fall in the draft, nobody could explain why. Was it interviews, private workouts, medicals, maybe something behind closed doors we'll never know? Whatever the reason, Cleveland scooped him up in round 5, and it looked like the steal of the draft at the time. Fans were buzzing. Analysts were calling it excellent value. Think about it. A quarterback projected to go in the top 50 falling that far, that doesn't just happen without someone noticing. But now, months later, that draft day excitement feels like it meant nothing. Because instead of excitement, we've got silence. Instead of competition, we've got contradictions. And instead of clarity, we're watching 2 rookies be developed in the dark, one losing games on Sundays, the other quietly winning practice reps no one can see. Historically, there's only one real NFL example where drafting 2 quarterbacks in the same class worked out, and it still came with chaos. Washington, 2012. Robert Griffin III went 2nd overall. Kirk Cousins was drafted 100 picks later. RG3 was the face, the future, the franchise. But injuries hit, Cousins stepped in, and eventually he became the long-term answer. Sound familiar? The problem? That success came at a heavy cost. The locker room became split, the coaching staff was torn, and the franchise chewed through head coaches like snacks at halftime. It worked by accident, not by design. Which brings us back to Cleveland. Drafting 2 QBs that close together creates confusion, uncertainty, pressure, and unless you're 100% confident in your long-term plan, it's like pouring gasoline on a season already hanging by a thread. What message are you sending your team when neither guy is given a real vote of confidence? What does your locker room think when one rookie gets to keep starting despite a 1-4 record? while the other, who's reportedly thriving in practice, doesn't even get a drive. And here's where the gamble really starts to backfire, because so far, both quarterbacks are suffering. Gabriel looks overwhelmed, overexposed. Sanders looks locked in but underutilized, forgotten. And the coaching staff? They look like they're waiting for something to save them, rather than making the bold choice that just might change everything. The reality is this: drafting 2 QBs in one class only works when the coaching staff is aggressive, decisive, and strategic. Not hesitant, not vague, not desperately hoping things sort themselves out. If you're going to play a rare card, you better know exactly how to use it. And right now, the Browns look like they walked into the casino with no idea what game they're playing. There's a phrase that floats around every NFL front office: study the past or you'll repeat it. Well, Browns fans are watching history repeat itself in real time. And they're not just looking at Cleveland's own tortured quarterback carousel. They're pointing to other teams who already lived this exact scenario and came out either scarred, lucky, or completely wrecked. Because the idea of drafting 2 quarterbacks and letting things play out sounds bold on draft day, but in reality, it's a mess almost every time. Let's rewind to the most well-known quarterback dual draft story of the modern era. Washington, 2012. They drafted Robert Griffin III with the 2nd overall pick. He was the face of the franchise, an electric athlete, rookie of the year, and walking highlight reel. Then, in the 4th round, they quietly took Kirk Cousins. Just a backup, they said. Insurance, a developmental guy, nothing more. Except, things didn't go according to plan. RG3 got injured. Cousins stepped in. And slowly, without much noise, he became the more reliable option. But instead of an elegant transition, the move tore the locker room apart. The coaching staff split into camps. So did the fan base. Every incomplete pass from RG3 was met with "put Cousins in." Every game Cousins lost sparked "we gave up on RG3 too soon." Even though Washington eventually chose Cousins and he put together a solid career, the drama that led there was destructive. It created tension, confusion, and constant media pressure that drove multiple coaches out the door. Sound familiar? Now look at Cleveland. 2 rookie quarterbacks, no established star, no clear timeline. Just growing frustration. And a roster that doesn't know who its leader is. And history proves that when a team gets indecisive with quarterbacks, it doesn't end quietly. It ends violently. Not physically, but organizationally. Players become unsure, coaches clash behind the scenes, and the front office loses control of the narrative. Let's go deeper. Green Bay, 2008. They drafted Brian Brome and Matt Flynn 6 rounds apart. Brome was supposed to be the backup to Aaron Rodgers. Flynn was drafted for depth. But by year 2, Brome was out of the league and Flynn was the one making NFL starts. Neither became real threats to Rodgers, but the way the dynamic unfolded proved one thing. Even when the roles should be clearly defined, the QB position always finds a way to turn into a circus when the team doesn't take control early. San Francisco, 2000. They took Giovanni Carmazzi's 65 picks before Tim Rattay. A clear pecking order, right? Wrong. Carmazzi faded into irrelevance by year 1. Rattay? He ended up starting several games over the years and carved out a longer career. But the reason you've likely never heard of Carmazzi goes back to the same issue we're seeing now: inconsistent coaching, poor planning, and an organization that didn't commit to a direction. Sure, you'll find outliers. Rare success stories where a second QB magically turns into a starter. But rare is the key word here. Kirk Cousins is the exception, not the rule. And yet, here the Browns are, playing the exact same hand, hoping a miracle walks through the door. But here's the biggest difference between those teams and Cleveland. At least Washington let both quarterbacks start. At least Green Bay gave Matt Flynn the preseason reps to show what he could do. At least San Fran made a decision early. Cleveland? They're in a holding pattern. One rookie is building up losses. The other one is just building mystery. The longer they wait, the worse it gets. Because if there's anything the NFL has taught us, it's that splitting reps, splitting attention, and splitting belief always leads to splitting the locker room. And in 32-team league driven by leadership at quarterback, that's the worst fate a franchise can face. Every week that passes, Shadur Sanders is being praised. And every week that passes, Shadur Sanders is still not playing. This isn't just a football story anymore, it's a human one. Because at some point, this stops being about development and starts becoming a conversation about damage. Not to the team, to the player. Let's be real. NFL quarterbacks don't develop by standing on the sideline holding a clipboard and watching plays they already studied 400 times that week. They develop by getting hit, making mistakes, getting yelled at, throwing touchdowns, and learning what works all in real game conditions. And Sanders, he's not getting any of that. Instead, he's in the quarterback's version of limbo, doing everything right, hearing the praise, earning respect behind the scenes, and yet still stuck on the bench while games keep slipping away. That sends a message to more than just the fan base. It sends a message to the player himself. Whether Cleveland realizes it or not, they're walking a dangerous line with Sanders because high-level athletes can feel when they're being overlooked. They can sense when their path forward doesn't match their performance. And they don't forget, especially when they've been promised a shot and keep hearing how impressive they are, without ever getting real chances to prove it. At some point, the praise turns hollow. It starts sounding like smoke instead of signal, and that's when confidence becomes a casualty. The NFL is littered with talented quarterbacks who never got real development windows. Guys with skills, vision, processing speed, but who never got the right chance at the right time. And it doesn't take years for that flame to burn out. It can happen in a single season. Every week Shadur sits, he's falling behind. Not because he's doing anything wrong, but because NFL decision makers across the league are seeing a player not playing. And in this league, out of sight means out of mind. Scouts don't care how many times a quarterback nails red zone drills in practice. They care whether he moves a defense on 3rd and long with a game on the line. General managers don't build a franchise on good meeting notes. They build it on proof. And right now, Sanders has no chance to show receipts. It's not just unfair, it's risky. Because quarterback confidence isn't unlimited. Even the most mentally tough quarterbacks from Aaron Rodgers to Josh Allen have all said the same thing. If you don't feel your coaches believe in you, it screws with how you prepare and how you perform. If that seed of doubt starts to grow inside Sanders, if he starts wondering, why am I still here? You're not just damaging his development, you're losing him. And the Browns cannot afford to keep losing quarterbacks they've gambled on. They've burned too many careers. Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Kaiser, Brandon Weeden, Colt McCoy. Each one had potential. Each one was misused, rushed, or ignored. Different eras. Same disaster. And now, you have a quarterback with pedigree, with leadership DNA. One who dominated at the college level, whose name carries weight, and whose preparation, according to the coach himself, has been exceptional. And yet, he's being stored away like a secret weapon the team's too afraid to use. That's not coaching. That's wasting potential. And if this trend continues, if Sanders continues getting months of praise without a single snap, the Browns aren't just risking another L in the standings. They're risking creating resentment in a player who could have been the face of this franchise for the next decade. Because eventually, even the best soldiers stop marching when the mission no longer makes sense. There's a sound Browns fans are getting way too familiar with. Silence from Kevin Stefanski, and screaming from everyone else. After 5 games, 4 losses, countless missed opportunities, and one very public quarterback controversy boiling over the Cleveland head coach is officially in the crosshairs. The hot seat isn't warming up anymore, it's fully on fire. Let's be honest. Stefanski has already burned through most of the goodwill he earned back in 2020 when he won Coach of the Year and finally gave fans hope that maybe, just maybe, the franchise had found stability. But hope is a fragile thing in Cleveland. And now, fans don't feel hopeful. They feel trapped. Trapped in another year of wasted talent, wasted games, and a head coach who seems more committed to defending his decisions than adjusting them. Let's call it what it is. 3 seasons removed from that award-winning year, and Stefanski is coaching like he doesn't realize what's at stake. And what's at stake is everything. This team is underperforming on every level. Offensively, inconsistent, predictable game plans. Defensively, hot and cold. Special teams, straight up embarrassing. Quarterback play, a muddy, self-inflicted mess. And yet somehow, the one player who hasn't gotten a real chance is the one everyone, including the coach, says is doing everything right. That contradiction has become Stefanski's legacy this season. Giving all the wrong people opportunities. And shelving the one player who could actually change the trajectory of his job. It's not just fans pointing it out now. The The Cleveland media is finally starting to press harder. Former players are speaking out. National analysts are starting to circle. And the whispers inside NFL circles are getting louder. How long will ownership let this go on? Because here's the reality. NFL ownership cares about one thing: results. And when your coach is 1-4, the locker room is tense, the fan base is revolting, and your quarterback situation is a public punchline, changes happen fast. Stefanski may think he's buying time by praising both quarterbacks, playing it safe with Gabriel, and talking about development, but in doing so, he's running out of rope. Fast. You can say the right things a dozen times, but at some point, inaction becomes a louder message. The refusal to even try Sanders, even for a half, even in a blowout, even in a desperation moment, feels less like strategy and more like stubbornness dressed up as leadership. And that stubbornness might cost Stefanski his job. Because when you're losing and ignoring the solution staring you in the face, fans stop asking questions and start demanding exits. They're not looking for damage control. They're looking for accountability. And right now, the only person left holding the bag is the head coach. Stefanski can't keep repeating "we're evaluating things" as his team bleeds out week after week. He can't keep getting in front of reporters and bragging about how sharp Sanders looks in practice, and then bury him on the depth chart like he's invisible. At some point, and that point might be now, the front office will make that decision for him. Because here's the truth. If you're a coach whose team is underperforming, your best chance to buy time is to make a move that sparks hope. Put in the rookie. Light the fire. Shake something loose. But when you cling to a plan that's clearly not working, and you publicly praise a player you refuse to actually use, you're not just refusing to adapt, you're daring your bosses to fire you. And if that happens, the real shame won't be the lost games. It'll be the unrealized potential he left sitting on the bench, along with his own job security. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you've seen this movie before. Overhyped roster. Underwhelming results. A quarterback controversy nobody asked for. And a coaching staff pretending like everything's under control while the season slips through their fingers. It's a story this franchise can't seem to stop telling. Different names. Same disaster. And right now, it feels like we're living through the sequel to every broken promise the Browns have ever made. They told you this time would be different, that they had stability, that the quarterback room was finally under control, that if a rookie earned his shot, he'd get it. So what's happening now? A coach who refuses to blink, a starter with a 1-4 record and no momentum, and a highly touted rookie collecting dust while being praised from the podium like a future Hall of Famer, but treated like a redshirt freshman at a college spring game. Every Browns fan knows that this is the cycle. It starts with hope, builds promise, and then collapses under confusion, indecision, and stubborn loyalty to the wrong players at the worst possible time. We've seen elite college quarterbacks disappear into the NFL abyss because the situation wasn't ready, because the coaches weren't clear or confident, because the team didn't make the move that every single eye in the stadium could see needed to happen. And make no mistake, the whole league is watching this unfold. Kevin Stefanski's unwillingness to give Shadur Sanders a single drive, not a quarter, not a gadget play, not 1 minute is turning into more than just a controversial choice. It's becoming a symbol of everything the Browns continue to get wrong. Because this was supposed to be the reset, the new chapter. The year where maybe, finally, they find their guy and build around him. Not just with words, but with action, with belief, with trust. Instead, we get locker room tension. Rumors everywhere, divided fans, exploding media coverage, coaching contradictions, and behind all of it, a potential franchise quarterback going unused while the season swirls down the same drain it's always found its way into. And that's where the heartbreak truly begins. Because what if Sanders is the guy? What if he really is ready but never given the chance? What if the Browns fumble this one too? We're not saying he's the next star, nobody knows that yet. But that's exactly the problem. Nobody ever will, unless he actually plays. That's the tragic loop this team can't seem to escape, holding back potential out of fear, delaying critical decisions until it's too late, and watching another year, maybe another young quarterback's future disappear into the fog of mishandled opportunity. We've lived this cycle with Whedon, Manziel, Kaiser, Griffin, Mayfield, and now, unless something changes right now, Shadur Sanders might be next. They tell the fans to trust the system, trust development, trust the vision. But what happens when the system is the problem? What happens when the coach refuses to coach boldly? When opportunities are rationed like privilege? When fans can see the future on the roster, but the staff pretends like they can't, because the only thing worse than picking the wrong quarterback is picking the right one and being too afraid to use him. So here we are. Again, same city, different name, same sinking feeling. And the question Browns fans are now asking out loud online and in the stadium every Sunday isn't just, why isn't Sanders playing? It's, what comes after? Will the Browns ever really learn? Or are they just doomed to keep making the same mistake until there's nobody left to believe they'll get it right? The next few weeks could define the future of this franchise, for the coach, for the team, and for the quarterback they might be wasting in front of all of us. The clock's ticking in Cleveland. And if they're not careful, by the time they give Sanders his shot, it might already be too late to matter. What would you do if you were Cleveland's coach right now? Stick with Gabriel or finally unleash Sanders? Hit that comment section because one of your answers might end up being exactly what this franchise needs to hear.